California, stay away from here. Stay away from here now. Don't come in here. Whatever you hear, stay away. John Doe has the upper hand.
What's in the box?
Greetings, everyone. Steve, Paracord Kindness. How you doing today? Hopefully your weaving's been happy. Okay, on this edition of What's in the Box? Don't look at the box, man. What's in the box? I got a box and 2 packages. I think I may have already mentioned this before or whatever, but this is what I want to talk about right here. These are just 2 small minor things that I've gotten. The last What's in the Box, that was the big one. I mentioned it. It was a big order, a lot of stuff. But I mentioned there was something I specifically wanted to talk about. It's this. But I'll get to that in a second. Okay, let's see. First off, shameless plug as always. This is a stitched Black Widow. It's kind of hard to see on camera. Let me see if I can't get this up here a little bit better. Maybe you can see. It's black, and then right here is Shockwave in pure red and black, and then it's got a little stitch around the side, this imperial red. I got a tutorial for this, card's description below. This is a stitched Black Widow. I've broken this one down into 3 separate videos: how to weave the bracelet, how to do the center stitching, and then how to do this side spiral stitch, as I call it. I'll put the link to this, and if I can put all of them in the cards, I will. But if not, I'll put them in the description below. Okay, now, let's see. We'll do this first, because there's not a lot in this, in these packages. I want to get to the thing. I want to get to this first. Or I want to get to this ultimately. So let's open this up. Let's see, right here. This is something I talked about in my last video. I said I've got it. It's in the package. I said I was going to open it, but the video ran long, so I made another. Okay, what we got here? Oh yeah, these are different. Orange buckles. Just orange 5/8 inch plastic buckles. You can see where I got them from. I had some in my inventory. Hang on, and I'll show you. Like I say, I always like to show you the colors on camera. Like I've said. Okay, there's one I've had in the past. Okay. I like to show you on camera because, like I've said in the past, when you look at a picture on the website, whether it be a buckle or a paracord color or whatever, it's not a true representation of what you're actually going to see most of the time, right? Because of lighting, camera angle, and all that, right? So you never really know what you're going to get. Well, me, I'll just order it to get it in hand to see. I do that with buckles, cord, all this stuff. And, you know, I'll put it in my inventory, use it, may not use it. You know, most of the time I find like if it's some crazy color that I ordered to see what it was. First off, I'm not going to order something I know I'm not going to use, but, you know, it might be something I may not use as much, but I'll eventually find a reason to use it. Trying out a new weave that I've never done, I'll use one of these colors, right? But you never can tell what the color's going to look like. So, a lot of times in these videos, I'll show you the color I've gotten, and I'll compare it to a color I already have. And I'll put them side by side. Now, it's still not going to be a true representation, but at least you can see under the same camera, the same angle, and the same lighting, the 2 colors. And perhaps one of them you have, and one of them you don't. So you get a better idea of what it looks like. And a lot of times, like in my last 2 videos, I know one of these colors I got, or some of the colors I got, what was being shown on the camera was not actually what the color I was seeing. It looked more blue on camera when in fact it was more green in reality. Make sense? But that's one of the reasons I do it. Now, I'm going to show you this. I've had these buckles. I got these buckles from Paracord Galaxy, and they're I want to say they sell them in like a 10-pack, I think is what it is. Doesn't matter. The color is red/orange, right? So it kind of, you can use it either way, I guess is what that's supposed to mean, right? So I ordered some from Paracord Planet that are actually orange. That's what they're labeled as. And I wanted to see hang on just a second. But I wanted to order these orange ones and see what the color of them look like compared to the red/orange ones, right? And there is a difference. There is a difference. I'll pull these out of the bag just so you can see. Like I said, these are Paracord Planet and they're labeled as orange. 5/8 inch. Yeah, gonna have to get that off with a little piece of little burr right there. No problem though. I'll get it off when I go to actually use it. But this is orange. Let's bring a light over here. And this is the red orange. You see there is a difference in color. This is more of a true orange. If I was to say this was be orange, and you know, this is red orange. I just wanted to see if there was a difference. Because I do make some stuff with orange buckles. My wife, she likes like fall colors, oranges, yellows, kind of some browns. She likes those type colors. Fall is her favorite season, so you know we ain't quite there yet, but it's approaching. But I wanted to, you know, get some buckles, and I got some brown ones too. Some brown ones. I got them from Paracord EU. I showed them in the last video. That's the first time I ever had any brown videos. Never had brown buckles. Never had any reason to have any. Don't use a lot of brown. Or buckle-wise, anyway. So there's that. Okay, let me put this back in its spot. And because I've gotten all these new buckles, I've had to buy some new storage units. Well, these right here, I just use in a little tiny thing. You can shake them around, move them. I just put them in this little thing, right? Because I ain't worried about them getting scratched. But like the metal ones I use, yeah, I don't put them in there. I put them in something else. Okay, now the other thing I got from Paracord Planet, this is, I made, let's see, where's it at? What did I do with it? I showed this in the last video, I think. If not, I'm going to show it right here. Where's it at? Really? I got so much stuff going on, especially today. Last week and today, or this week so far. Where is that cord at? Did I put it over here? Yeah, here it is right here. Okay. I'm going to show you. I made one of these. Like I said, like I said in the last video, I had a gentleman who owns a jewelry store. And he got in contact with me and he wants me to do, I sold him a bulk, you know, some of this stuff. He said, what have you got on hand? What have you got in stock you can sell me? And I went through and I found some bracelets and things. And, you know, it was all the stuff that I sent him, I can recreate, custom size. That's what I told him. I said, normally I do bracelets on a buckle. I don't work with shackles and knot and loop, Mad Max. I don't do that very often. I said, I have specialized in custom fit bracelets with a buckle. I said, that's my area of expertise, if you will. I said, so what I send you, I said, most of them are sized for my wrist, 7 inches. I said, you can sell them? He said, I'll probably use them as display models, demo models. And meaning, because he's a jewelry maker himself, so he's, you know, he knows how all this works. He said, I'll get the size from the customer, and I'll just let you know the order. I'm like, that'll work. But he's ordered a few from me. Like, when I post something on the social media, he'll say, I want that, and I want that and that. Okay? But I showed him this. This is a 4-loop conquistador. I mentioned this in the last video. And I put this on a pink plastic buckle, right? And I made this for my wife. Now, she doesn't normally like these wider bracelets, but when she saw me make a conquistador, she said, "Oh, that's nice. I like that." What? And I told her, I said, "Well, it's not really weaving. It's more knitting or crocheting or something like that." I said, "It takes a little time to sit down and do this. It takes longer to do one of these than it does like your average bracelet." Well, for me, when I go to stitch it, it kind of balances out. But she said, "I like that." She said, I said, "Now it's got to be in one solid color. The nature of the way it's made. Now you could do it in a couple of different colors, but I said, no. I said, the way it's done is one cord, one big long cord, so therefore it's one color." She said, "Oh." And I had this. She had bought this cord a while back, and I hadn't used it. It's a more cheap Walmart brand. And I thought, I bet you I can do a conquistador with that. And since the cord itself changes color about every 8, 9, 10 inches, something like that, I said, it'll cause the bracelet to be multicolored and it'll turn out rainbow. Well, that's what we ended up getting. Now, just to let you know, it's not every row. I didn't space it. You probably could, but it probably wouldn't work out perfect every time. But like you see blue and then you see yellow, then you see purple and pink and orange. It's not a perfect whatever. The colors don't change perfectly to line up with every repetition or every row. You know what I'm saying? Now this one, it just happened to, and it looks pretty daggone good. But anyway, I bought some. I was in Walmart the other day, and I seen it. It's 18 feet. I don't even know who makes it. But this, I can tell just by looking at it, that this is not dyed as well. The color is not, it looks like it's not holding the color very well. But that's the same cord. Okay? Then she wanted me to make one for her mother. And I tried to find some of this. I couldn't remember where we got it. I was like, I think it was at Walmart or whatever. And I've looked. Every time we go into Walmart, I look, and I couldn't see it. I went in there the other day. They had one little bundle, so I bought it. But I found this at Paracord Planet. It's neon rainbow. But you see how it does. You got the blue, and then it changes to purple, and it changes to pink, and then it changes to, you see what I'm saying? Let's see. I'll hold it down here on the thing. About 9 inches. 8, yeah, it's different for each one. Each color is slightly different. Yeah. But, it's just, you see what I'm saying? So when you weave a conquistador, this type cord that's sectioned in color like that works great on a conquistador. And it turns out to be this beautiful rainbow-looking thing that women love. My wife loves it, right? So I showed that to the jewelry guy, and I said, "Women love this." He said, "Ooh," he said, "I want one." And I showed him this. This is the one I made out of the cord from Walmart, right? Well, I made one out of this. I don't have it on me. I've already given it. She wanted me to make her mother one. So I ordered some cord, and the only stuff I could find at the time was this neon stuff. So I ordered a spool of that, and I made her mother, it was a birthday present for her mother out of this, okay? But I eventually come across pastel, and it's even more lighter than this. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, yeah. It's the same concept, it changes colors as it goes, but it's not quite as bright. This is going to be the lighter pastel. This stuff right here is the middle of the road. Now, I'm not going to use this on something because it's just not quality cord, whatever. Just the color doesn't look good. But I'll use something like that. That's actually pretty good. But you got a neon or rainbow. But I got to make this man one out of this and one out of this. That's what that is. That's all that is right there. Okay. Now, this is something, this is not so much paracord as it is something I've been wanting to get for a while, and I there were some other things I ordered from Amazon, which I hadn't got yet. But this one, I was like, you know what, just order this. I thought, what it is, I wanted to have like a color wheel. And I've looked on Amazon. I went into Michael's, craft stores, Hobby Lobby, all these different type places, and look, I've even went to some of these places where you can actually buy, like do photos. They have prints, and then they'll frame them for you. I mean, Michael's does that, but I went into some of these little smaller stores that's all they do. And I looked for just a picture, a print of a color wheel. And I can't find anything that I like. I mean, they've got some on Amazon, but they're more... but I saw this. I don't know, call me childish, but I went down here in my shop. It's something that I could visually see across the room. And it doesn't have a lot of, I don't think it has any writing on it, but it's all picture. And it's marketed to be hung as a banner in a classroom, right? So it's like basic color theory, primaries, secondaries, the color wheel, all that kind of information. But it's just pictures, right? And supposedly it's like 13 inches one way, and it's like 3.5 feet long, but there's two of them, two pieces of it. And I was like, I can hang this on the wall in my shop, because I'm always looking at a color wheel. But I wanted something I could actually put on the wall, and that's what this is. So, that's what this is. Let's look at it. Oh, goodness. Get it open. Yeah, I'm not going to unroll this whole thing. I just wanted to see. Oh, yeah. I can get it out. Yeah. This is, yeah. See what I'm saying? It's something like you would see in, like, an art class. But it honestly looks like it's been designed and geared to elementary school aged children. Tint, shade, tertiary. Yeah, it's got all your basic information. It's like a quick reference. But, it's mostly that right there. Always looking at it. I've got a thing I put together. It's some old cheap-looking bulletin board that I printed out some pictures, and I cut them so to fit them on the thing on this bulletin board over there. Where's that at? I hadn't hung any of them up yet. This is the same thing. Oh, this was the other one. Red and blue make violet, purple. Blue and yellow make green. Yellow and red make orange, that kind of thing. You see what I'm saying? And then it's got complementary colors, analogous colors. Colors that are next to each other on color wheel. Complementary colors are ones that are opposite. I just thought this was something, Amazon, $5. I figured, you can't go wrong. Even if it's something, I thought $5, I'll get that. But I'm going to eventually hang this up on the wall right over here. I got one space in my shop that's big enough to hang this up. And that's right here where I sit and make my bracelets. So, it'll be a visual reference type thing. Just something, I figured for $5, why not? Okay, let's get that out of the way. Man, I got so much stuff, all that stuff I had come in earlier that I made the other video out of on. Okay, now, this is what I wanted to talk about. I've talked about this here and there, whatever. I'll say this. I'm going to put this in the What's in the Box playlist, but in the title, I may say something actually about what I'm going to talk about. That way, the algorithms will help people find it. I'm going to definitely put it in the tags. But I started to name this video, is that a jig in your package, or are you just happy to see me? And I was like, no, I just put it in What's in the Box. Because I know there are people out there, I have come to find out, I started making these videos thinking, hey, ain't nobody going to watch them. There's actually some people that watch these things. Thank you. I appreciate it. But I've never had one of these. An easy jig. $9, Hobby Lobby. I've never had one. I'll be honest with you. I've talked about my jig. I've showed my jig. I've showed how I used it. But I've never made a video dedicated to this. Okay? So, I figured I would make one. And most of this is going to be about me talking about jigs. Okay? So, with that said, never used one of these. The first jig I ever did, when I started doing this, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be any good at this. I don't know if, whatever. And I was like, I don't want to spend $9. I thought, And I see the ones like the Easy Jig and the Jig Pro Shops and the ones you can get off Paracord Planet and all them. Some of them are kind of expensive. I was like, I don't want to spend, let's just average it out, about $50 for a jig for something that I don't know if I'm going to be good at, something I don't know if I'm going to like doing. So I made a jig. And I went through a couple of prototypes, and this one is still, quote unquote, a working prototype. Okay, so, like I've had people always ask me, when they first get into this, they ask me, what should I get? I said, well, first off, you got to get some cord. I said, it doesn't matter if it's cheap cord from China or if you go to one of the supply places. I said, probably your best bet is go to Amazon and buy you like an Easy Jig. It's cheap. Buy you some, a cheap variety pack of some cord, and then, something to, some buckles, that kind of thing. And I tell these people, I've never used an Easy Jig. I've never used one, so I can't tell you if it's any good or any bad. Well, I bought this one so I could actually say that I've used one, and therefore I can tell you what I don't like about it or what I do like about it, right? So this is not so much a review of the Easy Jig as it is a review of all the aspects of different jigs that I have and used. Now, I'll say this. I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but see if I can put it like this. A lot of times when somebody comes into this, they will, like for example, say they buy this jig. It's the only one they've ever used. And they think, oh, it's $9. And then they never buy another jig from one of these other places. This kind of put together, the nomenclature of the jig is different, meaning where the things are, how it's set up, and all that kind of stuff. So they don't know. They don't have anything to compare it to. This is all they know. So, in fact, you can't really speak about jigs because you've never used any of these other ones. The only one you know is that one. Or the Speedy Jig. Or the, what is that? Mr. Coop Jig. Most of us know who he is. He used to sell them. As far as I know, he doesn't sell them now. I saw somewhere that somebody said that he may start selling them again. Don't know. A lot of people, that's the one you see people when they make a jig, that's the one they do. Okay, now. But like I said, when I first started this, I didn't want to spend money on the stuff, and I got a shop out here. I got some basic tools. I got a drill and some saws, and I can read it. Obviously, I can read them tape measures. I can make a bracelet fit, right? But I'm not a carpenter. I've worked in construction. I've done this and that, but my shop is not a wood shop. I've just got a lot of the, I'll say this. This house has been in this family for about 3 generations. And there's a lot of stuff in here that's been passed down. And you can't call it a metal fabrication shop. You can't call it a wood shop. Definitely not a wood shop. If anything, it would be more of a metal fabrication shop. But it's not even that either. I mean, it's got a couple bench grinders, a bench vise, and then your basic hammers and some drills and things like that. Got a hand saw. Most of the stuff that was in here was you had to plug it in the wall. There was no cordless tools in here. This stuff was back from probably the 60s and the 70s. Okay, that's going to drive me nuts. Hang on just a second. I don't know what it is, man. When I turn my camera on, everything starts dinging. Drives me nuts. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm in the middle of something. You know? Like I say, I'm going to put the thing on mute. That way it's not going to bother me. Like I say, I'm not a filmmaker. Good, bad, mistakes and all. Come with me on a journey and let's learn. Where was I? But, you know, somebody who bought like this jig, and that's the only one they've ever used, they don't know the pros and cons of this jig compared to the other jig, or this jig, right? But I've made my own jig, and like I said, this is not a wood shop, so I don't have all the proper tools. You know, I got a drill, some drill bits, and a saw. And, you know, I don't have a table saw, it's a hand saw. So, you know, I don't have a need for any of that stuff. And I got a cordless drill because I use that all the time. But all these other power tools, cordless stuff, I don't have a lot of that because I don't need it. I did in the past, and we won't go down what happened to all that. But anyway, so I made my own jig. I watched a bunch of videos and looked at videos of jigs. All these different jigs. I went on Amazon and looked at them and saw how they were made and put together, and you know, all the different aspects, and I started watching tutorials, not so much for how to make the bracelet, but looking at their jigs and how they were using them. And I thought, okay, I can make that. And I come out here one day, and I just started gathering some scrap wood, putting it together, and this and that, and I made one, and I changed it and modified it and all that, and then I ended up making another one. And all the modifications I had done to the first one, I put on the second one. And then I made, you know, down the road, things changed, whatever. And I ended up making the third one. The one I'm working with now is the third one. And all the stuff I've done to it works for when I make a bracelet. Now, if I'm going to do something else, I go back to one of these other jigs. Because it has this, I've made this little special adapter connector type thing to it that I often use. But I'm going to show you my jig. I'm going to show you the qualities and the features that I have on it that make it, in my opinion, better than that easy jig. And I'm going to show you what I've done to that easy jig to modify it. Now, I hadn't finished modifying it, but I've modified it some. And I've even got a speedy jig over there. And I'll be quite honest with you, I don't like it. I do not like that thing. And I'll tell you why. That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to show you my jig, what I've done, and I'm going to kind of compare these things, okay? Now, my jig right now, it's actually got a bracelet on it. So, that'll help us see, you know. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay. If you've seen my post, you've seen I made one of these the other day. Sanctified endless chainmail falls, whatever. I'm going to come back and do the gold stitching. Okay. I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. First off, like I said, I don't have all the proper tools. So, I'll flip it over so you can see this. You see the groove right here? See how it's all jagged? I don't have a router to do this. So, I just improvised and did what I did. I took a big old fat drill bit and drilled a hole in there, and I just rocked it back and forth and kind of wallowed it out. And that's how I cut that groove in that piece of wood. And I come back with my rotary tool and put the sanding drum on there and kind of smoothed it out a little bit. You know, I didn't shape it perfectly. Why? It doesn't have to be pretty. I just want it to work. function over form, if that makes sense. I want the thing to work. I don't care what it looks like, right? Okay, so with all that said, that's why that thing looks like that. I know people are going to go, oh my God, that thing, it works. I've seen my work. I'll leave it at that. It's got Velcro on it. When I film the videos of it, it attaches. It's not laying flat on my desk. I've got it so I can angle it up, and it attaches via Velcro, and I move the camera angle. But okay, the 2 or 3 things I like about this one, the way I've made it. First and foremost, compared to the Easy Jig, the straps, they hold that buckle that I always do it this way. The female's on the top, that's the one attached to the jig, and the male is on the bottom, and it's attached to the jig. Every time I set it, when I change the bracelet size or bracelet type, I always put the male or the female at the top to attach to the jig. That way, my bracelet will always have the male end at the top where I start weaving. Why? It cuts down on confusion, and it cuts down on potential mistakes that I see so many people make. They end up making a bracelet and it's got 2 male ends or 2 female ends. If you have a standard and always do it the same way, you're less likely to create mistakes. Right? Make sense? Okay, that's that. But it holds it down. So when I go to set up my core strand, this is what I noticed. I didn't think anything about it until I actually got the Easy Jig, and it dawned on me. And I hated this. This is the thing I hated. I put these things together, fast. Set up my core strand, get it, and I'm ready to start weaving. Okay. When you clip in these two, the male and the female together, here and here, it's strapped down. It's not going anywhere. So when I start running my core strands through there, I don't have to worry about it popping off that little metal nub that it sits down on. If you have a Easy Jig, you know what I'm talking about. When that happened to me, I bought an Easy Jig just to try it out and see. And that right there was I don't like this jig. That was the main point, because I have worked with this being strapped down. Easy jigs like that, those jigs you get from Paracord Pro Shop or Jig Pro Shop or some of the ones you see sold that are made out of wood, they have the buckle strapped to it, so you ain't got to worry about it popping off. That is a big bonus. When you start doing this all the time, the jig works with you. It's not fighting against you. Make sense? Okay. Now, this is something I've seen, and Easy Jig or Speedy Jig, it attempts this, and it does good at this. Some of these jigs, like the Easy Jig, it doesn't. I'll show you what I'm talking about. The clearance in between the back side, the non-display side, and the spine. I call this the spine. I've heard this called the block, and this is the block. I've heard it all kinds of. I call this the carriage. Why? Because it's the piece that moves, right? And this is the spine back here, right? But I've got these blocks and this carriage, a couple of pieces of wood stacked on top of each other, and a big long screw holding it all together. Why? That way it has some give to it, but as these holes get stripped out, I can move it and put a new hole. I can move it and put a new hole, and eventually it looks like Swiss cheese. So I can unscrew the main screws, take that piece off, and replace it with something else. A brand new piece of wood. Makes sense? But having multiple pieces of wood creates this clearance behind here. I'll show you. Depending on what kind of fids you have and how long they are, there's about 3 inches. Here, let me zoom in a little bit. I got ink cartridge boxes. My desk is a mess. I have had so much going on last week and this week. but there's about 3 inches of clearance behind there. Okay, now what that is, you think, oh, it's a big deal. Well, when you start weaving some of these bracelets, you need to get up under there, right? If you got like one of these easy jigs and it's only got like this much room, clearance behind there, you can't get your hands in there, and it can be troublesome, right? But with this, I can get my hand under there, right? There could be more clearance, would be a little bit better, but that works. That works. That's why I've got, here's the spine, a 2x4, and these are 1x2s stacked on top of each other. That's why I've done that. And when most of us know when you get down here to the end of the bracelet, if you gotta use a fid to get it down through there, I do that while it's on the jig. I don't take it off and try to do it. I do it while it's on there. And, like I've said in a lot of my videos, sometimes weaving the bracelet, even before you get down here where it's real tight, it's easier to do with the lacing needle on the end of your cords. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's not. It just depends on the weave. But when you get down here to the end, I'll put it through, right? Now, going to the fid doesn't quite have the clearance to go in the back. But this thing here is not real wide. It's not a real wide piece of wood. So if I had to come in straight under it, look at that. You see what I'm saying? Straight under there, I can get there. But for the most part, I can get under there if I need to. I got to come at an angle or whatever. You see what I'm saying? So I've got clearance back there to do that. The easy jig, no, you can't do that. You don't have the room. Make sense? That's the 2 biggest factors when I put this thing together. Strapping that down and having a clearance back there to do that. Right? And this right here. This is something, because of the way I do this. I don't know how other people do it. This is the way I do this. When I put this on here, I measure this thing out. I get my jig measurement, and I'll set it a 1/4 inch shy of what I want it to actually be. I'll put my core strings in there, and I'll feed them through, run them through, and I'll tighten them up by hand. Then that's a wing nut. Now I've got that wing nut. There's a hole. It's recessed in there. If you look, it's recessed down into there, and I've kind of grooved it out on the side so the wings will sit in there. That way, basically what it does is it holds that wing in place, that wing nut in place. So I don't have to hold it with one hand and use a screwdriver on the other. Right? All I got to do is a screwdriver. But what I'll do, I've talked about this before, I'll set it up a 1/4 inch shy of what I want it to be. Then I'll flip it on its side, and I'll put a screwdriver there, and I'll put this part into my chest. And I got a piece of padding because I torque it, and I pull this thing toward me. And when I pull it as much as I can, I tighten that screw back up. So I got one hand here pulling and one hand on the screwdriver and the back end of it into my chest. And I pull it and I tighten it. And what that does, it causes this to be tight. I tell people this all the time. I see videos, I see people do this, and I'm like, you cannot build a plumb, level, and flush house on a foundation that is not stable. You must build on the solid rock. Him who has ears, let him hear. But I see some of these videos, and they don't, and I know they do it on purpose because they don't want to use a lot of cord and all this. They don't pull those things very tight or whatever. But that, training should be the most as realistic as possible, right? But you'll see it'll be flipping and flopping, and it's all loose and all that. No, but I'll pull this thing as tight as I can, tighten it up. And usually, like I said, I'll make it 1/4 inch shy of what I want it to be. When I pull it tight, it stretches all the cord, everything gets in place. This piece right here kind of bows in a little bit, and it gets me that when I tighten it up, I measure it again, and it usually is right on the money. I get that 1/4 inch out of it, and that causes everything to be tight, right? Okay, that's that. So with all that said, I'm gonna show you this easy jig, the speedy jig. Oh, and I'll say this too. I'll show you this. I tell this to everybody. Everybody takes a picture of their jig, what they made, what they bought. And the best piece of advice, take this, do this, it doesn't matter. Best piece of advice, I'm going to back out so you can see this. I'm going to explain this to you. Best piece of advice, people will have this jig, like this is my desktop. I have a literal desk in my shop, and I'm sitting in an office chair. People will have this jig set up here like this, and they will lean over so they can look down on it. All right? Very uncomfortable. Your back will begin to hurt, right? So what I have done on this jig, I purposely did it this way. I mean, it serves twofold purpose, but I purposely did it this way for this reason. What I will do, because this is so long. Yes, I could, if I wanted to make something like maybe a small dog collar. I don't think I could get it long enough to do like a large breed dog. Don't know. That's not what I made it for. But I made it so, you know, I could get it out there. But most importantly, the reason this spine piece is so long, it's not so much so I can pull my carriage and make something really long. That's not really why. Because I make mostly bracelets for human wrists. The reason this piece is so long is because what I will do is I will rest this. I'm sitting in an office chair on a concrete floor, office chair that rolls around, it swivels, it spins, all that. Now, all the little bends and raises up and down, all that stuff's kind of broke on it. It's an old chair, but, you know, it serves my purpose. But I put this piece right here in my lap, between my legs, resting in the seat of the office chair. And the back of this rests on the corner. The corner of my desk is about 2 inches right here, right? And I'll back my chair up just slightly. This light, I will swing it out. So basically what I have is this thing, you see how it's angled? It's sitting on the edge of my desk. But I put the other end of it, not this end, the other end of it down between my legs in the chair, and it's resting on my desk. That way, I'm looking straight at it, as opposed to it sitting like this on the desk and me having to lean over to look down at it. I can see what I'm doing better. And it's more comfortable, and it produces a better looking bracelet. Why? Because I can see it. That's why this is so long. So this, like, you know, how much distance is it between, like when you sit down in a chair, from the seat you're sitting in to the top part of your thigh, where your lap is? 6, 7, 8 inches of thigh? That's what this is. That way this is not resting on my thighs. It's raised up just enough that my thigh will be right there. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. That's why I made this long. And I say people, when they get one of these easy jigs or the speedy jig, the first thing I tell them is figure out a way to strap it to something so that you have this piece sticking down on the back. That way you can put it between your legs and wherever you're sitting, and you can lean the top of it up against the edge of the desk. Right? Because I've talked to people about this, and they're like, yeah, you know, that's a good idea. They say, I'm always fighting the jigs moving and it's flopping and all this. And another reason, I got all this wood. It's not heavy, but it's just enough that it keeps it from being, like when I go to pull it, it doesn't angle itself one way or the other. You know what I'm saying? Like the edge of my desk will be leaning on it right in here. It's not wanting to slide back and forth. But I'm usually holding one side I'm pulling the other. Holding back and pulling. That way it doesn't do that. But that right there is the most comfortable thing. Let me rephrase that. It makes for a more comfortable position to weave in, right? Okay, now, with all that said, I'm going to show you this Easy Jig. And all the stuff I explained to you about this one, I'm going to show you the Easy Jig. I've already put it on a piece of wood. I've already done some of these modifications to it. Now, I've actually got a bracelet on it. Well, it's not a bracelet. It's a practice piece. There's the jig. See how small this thing is? And people will put this and they'll sit it on their desk and I have to lean over. Now, I've got it. It's as short as it's going to get. Now, it'll stretch out to about, I don't know, it's got measurements on the side. Don't ever use those measurements. Measure your bracelets this way. I cannot stress this enough. I tell people this, and then I see them go, wow, oh man, I measured it wrong. Yep. It's because you were using that. You were using those measurements. When do it this way. With an independent measuring device. A ruler is what I use. From connection point to connection point. Use this. Why? Because this accurately shows you the measurement. That may not line up with where this buckle is. If you use a different size buckle, if you do one of these little strap things like I've got, it may not be, it's going to cause all these measurements to be wrong. Do not use that. Use this. I tell people that, and then they go ahead and they just hard-headed and they don't listen, and my bracelet didn't fit. What'd you use to measure it? The measurements on the jig. Told you. I told you not to. I hate to be the one to say I told you so, but, I told you so. Measure it this way. Measure it this way. Let's stretch that up. But I've taken this jig. I made some modifications to it to make it better. First off, you see where I strapped it onto a piece of wood to have this piece down here. And I got the piece long enough, hopefully, that when I stretch this out, there'll still be enough. There should be still enough room down here, if I can get my finger up on it, down here, that I can put this between my legs. Now, honestly, I'll probably notch this out, right? See? And I strapped it down. Can't strap these, you can't bolt this down because this is the part that's going to slide the carriage. But it's bolted down under here. I drilled, oh goodness. What is that? I just drilled 2 holes and put 2 big old long wood screws in there. Countersunk them a little bit. That's it. Now, I'll tell you what all this is right here. For anybody who has one of these, this bolt here is the only thing that's holding this upper and lower piece together when they slide. So when you loosen that bolt up, those 2 pieces, yeah, they'll slide apart, but they also will angle out. And I was like, what? No, that's got to be fixed right quick in a hurry. So all I did was I got some old scrap ruler, like you go to a hardware store and they give you those sticks you stir paint with. That's basically what these are. I took some and I cut them. Now you got to make sure you orientate them right? But you see what I'm saying. I put one on here and one down here. And it acts as a guide. And there's on the other side. That way when I go to slide it, it doesn't do that. It stays straight for the most part. Makes sense? That's what that is. Okay, now, the other thing I did, because I mounted it on this piece, the way this thing is made, this right here was it was a bolt. It didn't have like I've changed it. I put the Phillips head bolt up here. All it was, I don't know, what do you call it? Somebody don't know, put it in the comments below. Just a bolt that has no head on it. Or it's got a head, but it has no place to put a screwdriver. It's just a solid bolt. And the way you tightened and loosened it was a wing nut on the bottom. Right? Nothing wrong with that. But because I strapped it to this piece of wood, you couldn't get in there very well. You didn't have enough clearance in there to get a hold of it good and tighten it up real well. Right? So what I did is I come back, had a bolt and a wing nut. I put the bolt, which is the same, it's the same size bolt I have on this one. It's just longer. Thread count and all that's the same. It's just longer, or it's just shorter. Does that make sense? So that way, the same screwdriver will fit in that I can use on that, right? So the wing nut's on the bottom. What I did, so I didn't have to reach back there and hold it. I took a piece of wood and mounted on it right next to that wing nut. You got the two wings sticking off the side. I put a piece of wood next to it. So when I turn this screw, that wing nut, it can't go nowhere. Now you can't see it very well, but all it is two of those little pieces of, like I said, a paint stir stick. It holds that wing nut. Now yeah, it's going to move a little bit when you tighten it, and then when you lose it, it's going to hold. I don't have to reach back there with my hand and hold it while I'm trying to screw this. Why? Because my other hand is going to be used to tighten this thing. Does that make sense? I can flip it on its side, loosen it up, and I can pull it to me. And for anyone who has one of these, you know what I'm talking about when it angles, because that's the only point that's holding the top and the bottom together. It causes those two pieces to want to scissor like. Well, that's what these little extra pieces did. Make sense? Now it's not the most sturdy thing, because it ain't one of those. But you see what I'm saying? Now, granted, because of that little block of wood and all this stuff on here, you can't stretch it as far as you would, but from connection point to connection point is 10 3/4 inches. If you need to measure a bracelet longer than that, that's a big person. But, you know, if need be, I can take all these little doodads out. If I have something, if a rare case comes up where I need to make something that big, I'll just use the other one. But, you know, if this is all you got, I can take this stuff off and do it. But you see what I'm saying? Like I said, I'll put it on there. I'll put it on there. Now, that is about, you know, because of the core strength I got. But what I can do is I can turn it like I do the other one, putting it in my chest. I can grab a hold of this piece right here, and I can pull it toward me. But I got my screwdriver in there, and I'm using it also to kind of pull. And I'll pull it to me. And that gets all this tight. Now, I'm not pulling as hard as I normally would, because I don't know if this thing, I don't know how well this thing's going to hold together. But you can pull it, and as you're holding it, you reach back here and you tighten it up. That's pretty dang tight. That'll work. Makes sense. That's what I've done to this thing to, you know. All this is a practice weave. And I sat here and I practiced and did some stuff. Okay, so it's got the straps. Bonus. I've had to change all this, put it on a piece of wood. Yeah, it can be done. If you got some scrap wood, a screwdriver, and a drill, and some screws, it can be done. It's not hard. Like I said, I'm not a carpenter. I couldn't frame a house. I can't build a bird box, like a bird house out in the yard. Yeah, I couldn't do that. I could try. It'd be all, it wouldn't be level, flush, and plumb. I can do that right now. But something like this, I can do. I can just sit here and put it together. Okay? But the one thing about it, the clearance in between here, it's not very much. But it's a little bit. You can get your hands under there enough to work, because this piece is not real wide, so you can kind of come in at an angle. But I can always come back. I don't know how these are in here. I haven't messed with them too much. I figured if I broke the thing, it was only $9. But I wanted to see how it worked. I think this is going to unscrew. That's what it looks like. What it is two little hook pieces. There's one on either side. It looks like it unscrews. But I'm sure I can unscrew that, unscrew all this, and take another piece of wood. And like I did on this one, just add another piece of wood and screw it down and sort of hold it. And what that'll do is raise that bracelet up and give it more clearance on this back side. That makes sense. Hopefully what I'm showing you, but like I said, I looked at all these jigs. Instead of buying one, I looked at this thing, and I looked at it, and I thought about it, and I watched how these people were using it. I looked at the Easy Jig, because a lot of the YouTube tutorials, you'll see them using an Easy Jig. And then I seen the Mr. Coop's jig, and I was like, I was like, I don't need one like Mr. Coop. I said, I'm not. And I've seen jigs made out of PVC pipe. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go on Google search and type in PVC paracord jig, and you will see these things. I've got some PVC pipe. I don't have all the joint or the elbows that I would need, the 90s and the 45s, to put it all together. I got glue, PVC glue. I did plumbing work. I do light plumbing work. So I've got some, but I don't have all the joints. I buy them when needed. But I've got some PVC pipe, 1.25 inches. I don't have enough of it though. But I could do one like that. I don't have I never had a need to because of this thing. But I looked at all those different ways that people were using them and how they functioned and all that, and I thought I can make one. And this is what I come up with over time. Like I said, I made 3 of them. This is the 3rd one, and I've changed them ever so slightly each time. And so far, this thing right here, this by far, and it may be just because this is what I've gotten used to, but I went back and used some of the other ones, and I see issues with them. I can't say nothing about a Mr. Coop's jig. Never used one, never owned one, never made anything, like that. This is what I've got, right? I can tell people, it ain't pretty, but it works. Most of you see my work on social media, so, the jig ain't got to be pretty. You just got to know how to use it. And I made this thing to specialize in bracelets, custom fit, on a buckle, right? Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with this one. I haven't actually sized a bracelet to make yet. Let me clarify. I have used it with this little thing here to see, and I've weaved this out. I got enough cord here to weave this out, and I weaved it out, and I was like, I already knew what the issues were going to be because I compared to what I've got, I can look at it and tell you what I would change about it. Now, like I say, I'm not saying I'm not an expert. I'm not perfect. That's my opinion. All this is my opinion. You can take it, leave it, do what you want. But I will say, if nothing else, whatever kind of jig you have, whether it's this Easy Jig or one of them speedy jigs, mount it onto something so you can, like I say, put one end in your lap between your legs, resting in it on the seat. And I sit on it, it's an office chair, so it's cushioned, and plus I have a pillow down there too. No, it's not one of them donut hemorrhoid pillows. It's just a pillow, because this chair is old and it's falling apart. And it's not, the cushion's not falling apart, the cushion's just flat because it's so old. And whatever. But I put that down there, and then that way I can lean it up. And I got it measured out, so it's about right at eye level. You know what I'm saying? So when it's sitting there in front of me, leaned on my desk and all that, I'm looking, my eye level's about right in this area, right here. Right? So it's more ergonomic overall, and it's more comfortable than me having to lean forward over my desk. And this thing being so light, And when I'm trying to move it, it's sliding around everywhere. This thing, it's not heavy, but it's not so light that it's going to move around all over the place. Does that make sense? Now that easy jig, I'll show you this just to show you, because I'm talking about it, and I put it on a piece of wood. I've used this once or twice, and I just don't like it. I just don't like the thing because of this. You put only one part of the buckle here, whether it be male or female. You put a male here and a female here, and you begin setting up your core strands. When I did that, it kept pulling that thing off, and that drove me nuts because I was used to this. And I thought, and I talked to some people that own these, and they said, yes, that's one thing about this I can't stand. That's how they put a clip or something to try to hold it on there. I'm like, okay. So it wasn't just me. But I strapped it to, I used some zip ties. All I did was I drilled a hole in there, and I just got 2 zip ties, one going around one way and one going around the other way. Now, I did this for something else, but this ended up not working, so that's what that's for. I put a piece of Velcro on the back so I could attach it to the little setup I got when I do, but I haven't actually ever used it. That was one reason I thought, well, let me buy that, and I might use it for my tutorials. Well, after I used it a couple of times, I'm like, no, I don't like it, right? And then the one at the bottom, all I did was it. The zip ties I've got, the ones I had on hand at the time, they're not long enough to wrap all around it, so I just put 2 together. You see what I'm saying? And it's got those rubber feet. It's got those rubber feet. So when I put them on there and I crank down, it's not as tight as it could be. I mean, it's pretty daggone tight. It doesn't move back and forth. And it's, you know, it's an 18-inch jig. I'm not going to be using it for something that long, most likely. So, you know, I don't need all that. But I put it on, you know, I got about, this piece of wood right here is about 2 feet long, 24 inches, I think is what I measured it as. Because that's about what this one is. Right? I tried to get the proportions about the same. You see what I'm saying? That way, if I could use it on the camera when I film the actual weaving. Hopefully that makes sense. That's what I did that for. That's why it's got this room at the top. It showed where the buckle would be down like this one is. And when I strap it down with that Velcro, the buckles will be in relatively the same position in relation to where my camera is positioned. So I guess I guess I do have some knowledge of making films. I always say I'm not a filmmaker. Well, it's camera placement and lighting, but I don't have the best camera and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. I've been wanting to fix the lighting, but the thing is, when you see my videos and you see that big shadow across the bottom, it's because of the rig I have holding my camera. So just move your light. Well, the problem is there's a metal air conditioning duct right above my head, so I can't move it any. I can't drill into the ductwork. It's not a very good idea. Makes sense? So I'd have to build some sort of rig up top to be able to move it. I mean, I can do all that. I just never sat down to actually do it. It's not that big of a problem because the shadow's down here at the bottom of the screen. If you've seen my tutorials on me weaving, look down there, you'll see it. That's what that is. It's because of the way this camera, I've got a piece of wood. In fact, what it is one of these pieces of wood running across the top of my desk with a camera pointing straight down. It moves. It moves. If I bump it, it will move. It's not attached. It's just sitting up there. I've got a thing, you know, on either side of my desk that holds it up there. I can pull that camera off, and I got a special rig that I use when I do the weaving. I might show you that one day. I've showed some people, and they're like, what kind of monstrosity engineering thing is that? I'm like, I'll explain it to you. But I want to do something better. I've looked at maybe like a drafting table, but I still have the problem of mounting the camera up above. That's the issue. It's not, no, but anyway, that's how I mounted, I kind of got off subject. That's how I mounted this thing down, right? And it can be, I've used it once or twice, and it's fairly good. You can put it on there once you get it set up. So that's the thing. Whatever. I bent these off a little bit because, you know, they were bent backwards. And it caused your buckles to be cocked up as opposed to laying flat. I bent them a little bit. Because it was going to cause all my measurements to be off. All my recipe cards would be off because of these two pieces of bent. And I'm like, I'm not going back and redoing all that. I'm not bending, this is. So I bent them. That way the buckles themselves lay flatter. As opposed to, if you've seen them, you know. If you look at this. You see, it lays flat. On one of these, the way it's made, that's another thing I don't like about it. That piece of metal right there was angled like straight back. So when you put your buckle on there, that piece of buckle, it wasn't laid parallel to the piece, it was raised up. Now if you got used to that, great. You can measure your stuff that way. But all my recipe cards are set up for having a buckle that's parallel. You think, well, what's it matter? Well, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch difference. That's the difference in a bracelet being too snug or like I can get the tip of my finger under there. If I force it, I can get my whole finger under there. See, it's a slight difference. You know, when you're making these custom fit, you want the thing to fit, right? I don't want any variables in there. But that's the jigs I've got. And like I said, I haven't actually weaved a bracelet on this one yet. I have used it. I've set it up my little practice cord I got, and I've weaved a couple of things just to see how it worked. But before I even did that, I did all these modifications because I already saw issues it was going to have. That where it pivot the scissor, because I was like, yeah, that's got to be fixed. And then I fixed that, and then I mounted it, and then I did the screw. You know, I put the screw in there, the bolt, as opposed to the one that came with it. And I did the little thing to hold the wing nut, right? But just, you know, think about what I've showed you. And maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. But if nothing else, you see how I do this. You should kind of see my process of this and the way I think about it. But if one piece of advice I give you is put it on something so you don't have to lean over your desk. So many people say it's so uncomfortable leaning, and they're fighting with a jig and it's moving here and moving there. If you do it, put it on something. It doesn't matter. I showed you how I did it. You can do it however you want, whatever way you can come up with. But you want it on there secure. That way you can angle it up. And you're looking straight at it. And, you know, if you got this piece of wood, sometimes I can reach down there like riding a horse. You bite down on it with your thighs or whatever. But I don't have to do that because it's just the way I put it down. I got the pillow down there, and I've gotten used to putting it the way I put it right up under the edge of that pillow, and it holds it. And the top of it, like I say, most of us, I would imagine, do this anyway. When you pull on one side to tighten it up, you're either holding the jig or the bracelet or something. You're holding it back, counteract. For every, you know, you pull in one way, you got to counteract that force pulling the other direction. That way you can get it tight. Now, most of us do that anyway. At least I would assume we do. So, you know, it doesn't have to slide. You don't worry about it sliding so much. But the weight of the piece of wood keeps it from sliding a lot. Makes sense? Now, you can put, like, what do you call this stuff? You know what I'm saying? Like shelf liner. It's kind of, I don't know what it is, rubbery neoprene stuff. You can cut you a piece of that and attach it to the back side of this thing, you know, and that would act as a grip, just like the rubber feet. It causes a little bit of friction. That way, when you lean it on your desk, it's got a little bit more friction. It'll grip it a little bit better. You know, it's just little things like that I think about. But I don't know. I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna say too much about it, but I showed you my jig and how I use it and why I made it the way I made it. But like I said, at the time, I had never used any of these other things. Never had a Jig Pro Shop Jig or Mr. Coop Jig. Never had any of those. So I can't really speak to anything about them, but I've got these two. I'll tell you what I like and don't like. That right there was a killer for me. Not the bending thing, the fact that the buckle's not held on there and it kept popping off when I was setting up core strands. This was not that bad. This was actually a decent jig if you do some mods to it. It wasn't that hard. But like I said, I seen all these jigs and watched how people use them, and I decided I'd make one. And like I said, this is the third one, and I modified each one of them. And that's what I come up with. And that thing works. I can crank down the pressure on that thing, and I ain't worried about it breaking. Now, if I put a plastic buckles on it, yeah, I can't quite crank down the pressure, because most often the plastic buckles, not that they're going to break, they'll just fail. The male and female end that's up here or down here will pop loose. So that's another reason I like the metal buckles. I ain't gonna worry about that. I can pull that thing as tight as I want. I ain't worried about that buckle coming loose. If anything, it's gonna rip the screw out. But anyway, that's my jig 101, if you will. But you know, hopefully that helps somebody. You got some useful information. You got an idea or something. You got some ideas, some suggestions on how you modified your jig, whichever one you got, or you know, anything. Like I say, I don't claim to be perfect. I don't claim to know everything. I'm showing you what I do. So maybe you can learn from it. Maybe it might help you. You know, the problem, you didn't realize it was a problem until somebody said, hey, there's a better way. And you're like, oh, yeah, I see that now. Yeah, that has always bothered me, the buckle always popping off. Clip of some sort. I don't know. These things wouldn't work very well because it's metal on metal, and it would, you know, me moving off fast, it'd come off too, I think. I mean, you might be able to drill a hole, put like a little screw or something on there. I mean, there's all kind of things. This is some hardened steel, so you're going to have a good bit. I don't know if it's actually hardened steel, but you're going to have to get you a good bit to drill through there and put a screw. You can put like a little small pair of vice grips or a little small clamp that you can tweak down and rotate it, and then just clamp to the top of it, just above where the buckle is, and that would hold the buckle on, keep it from pulling out. You know, these ideas on the fly I'm just coming up with. It may not be pretty, but it'll work. It'll serve the purpose. Make sense? But anyway, I'm gonna leave it at that. Leave some comments below, like, share, I'll subscribe, you know, all that good stuff. But with that, I'm gonna end this one like I end them all. Keep it neat, keep it clean, and keep it tight. Happy weaving, folks.